What are your thoughts on margin for people who are young? Because I have a note here that your argument is that young people should potentially borrow to invest. And I would love for you to explain the rationale behind this.
The economic models on lifetime saving and asset allocation suggest is that you want to reach your lifetime exposure to stocks as early as possible. Now, if you have $10,000 in your investment account, but you have $3 million of future earnings that you will eventually save, but you don't yet have access to, and your lifetime allocation to stock should be whatever, 70% or something, then the amount you should have in stocks today, based on economic models, is much higher than your available savings. And therefore, you should borrow to invest, to get closer to your optimal lifetime exposure to stocks. Now, should people use margin? The downside of margin is that you can lose everything. You can have a total blow up. I think that's very unpleasant and can deter people from investing afterwards. So I don't tell people to use margin. I think conceptually leverage for young people does make sense. There are lots of other ways that people can get leverage. People use leverage to an extent when they take out a mortgage to buy a house. Some people use leveraged ETFs. I don't have a super strong opinion on those. But yeah, so it's a good idea in theory, but should people actually go out and borrow on margin to invest when they're 22 years old? I'd be pretty hesitant to.
So it was interesting. Chris Camillo was making the argument that people who are young should be buying a 2 to 3x leveraged S&P 500 index, and said that even at 2x leverage, if you're just going to be dollar cost averaging, you might see an 80% decline if the market collapses like 2008. But if you keep buying in long term, it should outperform.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on something like that, which is really aggressive, but as long as you could stay the path, assuming you're not going to panic sell or go to zero?
Honestly, I don't hate it. I'm a little hesitant to say yes, S&P 500 only, because that's not really a diversified portfolio. The U.S. market has gone through very long periods where it delivered no returns. The general idea of using leverage for young people and using leveraged ETFs to get it is not terrible. I'd be very careful about who should actually go and implement that. I think behaviorally could be very, very difficult for a lot of people, but I don't hate it. I don't hate his comment.
So who should? I'm curious because I think about it logically and it does sort of make sense. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of decay because you are paying that margin fee or you're paying the expense ratio on a leveraged ETF that's usually going to be a little bit higher than the base form of the ETF.
But you know what? So we had a professor on from Arizona who's done a study on, his was looking at single stock leverage products. He's actually less concerned about this stuff. We had another Yale professor too that talked about the same thing. I brought up the leverage decay. It's the volatility decay that people worry about. And both those guys said that's not really the right way to think about it. Like that's just part of the cost of leverage. But you look at go and take out a margin loan or go and take out a bank loan. And the leverage ETFs overall, with the total cost of implementing leverage through that medium, is going to be pretty competitive. So I don't worry about that stuff. I think the behavioral issues are much larger.
So if you are to do leveraged ETFs, then what would make the most sense is something similar to what you practice, which is you kind of just buy it and then let it sit. And you don't even check your portfolio probably.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be trying to go in and out of the market using leveraged ETFs to trade.
But it is, if you're holding 10, 15, 20 years, you don't really see a problem in buying, VT leveraged.
So again, I would be like,
I don't think
recommending leverage in my profession is like super, super dangerous. So I'm not saying everybody should use leverage. I don't want listeners to think that that's what I'm saying. I think for people who can psychologically handle it, who really understand the implications of what they're doing, the ups and downs that can come, the costs of doing it, all that kind of stuff.
Here's where I'm getting at this. You are talking about this from a very academic standpoint of research and history. And then I think there's also a behavior component to this that
for sure.
Probably I'd say behavior is more important than what's academically correct. Would you agree with this?
Yeah. In the paper that I mentioned that argues for this approach, they do kind of acknowledge that the behavior is a big issue. The argument that they make in the paper is that if people understood the long-term benefits, the behavioral aspects would be a lot more palatable. Like people don't realize how big the potential benefits are, and that's why it's so behaviorally difficult. So they do talk about that. But talking to actual investors, as I do, I would be really worried about most people successfully implementing this type of strategy over a long period of time.
How important is behavior when it comes to investing like this?
Not just like this. I would say investing, period. Behavior is kind of everything. Investing is simple but not easy. I didn't come up with that. Lots of people said that before, but it's, you buy index funds. Very simple. But how many people actually do that and hold on to them for the long run? Not a ton.
So should people be more afraid about losing money in the markets or more afraid about losing purchasing power of cash?
Without question, cash. Without question. Over a 30-year horizon, cash is much riskier than the stock market.
And from your perspective, if someone wants to save more money to invest, is it better for them to cut back or try to make more money?
Make more money is my opinion. People get pretty upset when I say that. Like when I make the point that I made earlier that maybe not everybody should be trying to save as much as they possibly can as early as possible. People get really upset when I say that. When I say people should maybe just earn more money, they get really upset about that too. But I think there are lots of ways people can earn more money. I don't think you guys would disagree. Like you guys are both doing stuff. You're using your time in ways that allow you to earn more money than you could at, I don't know, working at I'm not going to call anything out, but a job that makes less money. Like there are things that you can do. Not everything is in your control, and I completely acknowledge that. But there are things that people can do to improve their situation.
But that being said, it still does make sense for a lot of people to probably save more than they're spending, because I do think that the U.S. and probably just North America in general has a spending issue.
I agree.
And so if someone is dissatisfied with where they're at financially, for 99% of the people within that population, it's probably they're spending too much. What sort of spending strategies or expenses do you think people waste their money on, or strategies they should implement in order to improve their financial performance?
I'm not a fan of budgeting personally. Never clicked with me. But I think that what you can do is define the amount that you need to save in order to reach whatever your goal is and work backwards from there. And sometimes you might realize that the amount of saving you have to do to achieve the goal is way too aggressive. You want to retire at 35, so you have to save 60% of your income, which means you're living on whatever, $1,200 a month or something. That probably doesn't sound palatable to a lot of people, so you adjust your goals. But I much prefer, and this is what I do personally, I know how much I need to save each year. I save that, and I don't really worry too much about the rest of the spending. But I'm also, I'm not going to restaurants and just ordering water. But I think I'm naturally pretty frugal. So I think if someone has a spending problem, that probably requires deeper reflection.
If you have a cat, you know that keeping them healthy is a non-negotiable. And a big part of that really just comes down to diet. By choosing a quality cat food, you're buying more time with your cat and giving them a happier, healthier life.
That's exactly why we are so excited to partner with 𝗪𝗏s. 𝗪𝗏s is fresh, human-grade cat food that does so much more than just feed your cat. It helps them live a full, healthy life.
Not only is 𝗪𝗏s healthier for your cat, but it also noticeably improves their energy. In fact, 88% of cat parents say that after feeding 𝗪𝗏s, their cat is softer and shinier and has more energy to play.
𝗪𝗏s recipes are over 80% protein, which helps your cat build the muscle they need, and they never use fillers or artificial ingredients.
Personally, I found that finding the right cat food is really difficult because in my case, I have one cat that will literally eat anything. Like you leave any morsel of food on the table, it just will eat it. The other cat's extremely picky, but with 𝗪𝗏s, they both enjoy it. It's the perfect fix.
If you're ready to find your forever cat food, 𝗪𝗏s is perfect for you, and for a limited time, because you're a nice coffee hour listener, you get 60% off your first order plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to 𝗪𝗏s.com/iced. That's 60% off your first order plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to 𝗪𝗏s.com/iced.
Thank you again to 𝗪𝗏s for sponsoring this podcast.